Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have a bit of a different video lined up for today. So far, I've pretty much just talked about Arsenal on my channel, and that's because Arsenal is the team that I do care the most about and really follow through the season. However, American football and ice hockey are also sports that I take quite an interest in. I haven't really talked about them much, and I don't know if I'm going to much on the channel, unless that's something people really want to see. Uh, but I wanted to talk about American football this time at least because my college team, Notre Dame, just got a really big win, and I wanted to just share all those feelings of joy. Because my dad uh, supported Notre Dame, and that passed on to me. When I started cheering for them, I didn't realize that they were one of the most universally despised teams in college football. A lot of people, it seems, don't actually like us that much. I didn't know that when I started watching them, but now that kind of makes me sad. But I like Notre Dame a lot. Um, and I've been watching them for a while, and tonight or last night it is they just beat Georgia, which is massive. The first bowl game I remember watching for Notre Dame was the 2015 or maybe it was 2016 Fiesta Bowl, where they just got annihilated by Ohio State, and that was kind of the trend that went on throughout Notre Dame seasons. Is they'd always be pretty good, but never like quite in the elite tier. And when they got into bowl games for the elite teams in the New Year's Six games, sorry, they almost always got blown out. And that was kind of sad and frustrating to see. So the Ohio State game way back in 2015 when they lost, I think like 44 to 20 or something. From there, they also had two playoff games where they were blown out both times, and another Fiesta Bowl where they were actually winning 28-7 at halftime and then blew it in the second half somehow, and it was really disappointing. Notre Dame hadn't actually won a bowl game or of the New Year's Six magnitude since 1993. I'm not old enough to remember the 2012 national championship, but my dad has told me about how awful it was to watch them get destroyed by Alabama that time. So, again, Notre Dame just has a lot of recent history of losing very bad in the biggest games. And then came the game last night against Georgia. Georgia number 2 in the nation. And this is a Notre Dame team that had put up some pretty impressive numbers throughout the regular season, but also didn't really play much real competition. And they did have the loss to Northern Illinois hanging over them the whole time. And I figured they were going to beat Indiana in the first round of the playoffs pretty easily, and they did. So that was good. But Georgia was probably the first like truly elite team they had played this season. And so I was kind of nervous, and I felt like I'd seen the script before. I just imagined it was going to be the same as every other New Year's Six game I watched for Notre Dame. And instead, the defense completely balled out the whole game. Uh, Georgia almost got a touchdown in the first quarter, and then Notre Dame forced a fumble and got the ball back. It was 6-3. It was going to be 6-3 at halftime. And even that was exciting to me because I really hadn't seen them compete against the truly elite teams like that uh, much at all since I had been watching them for about 10 years now. Um, and then from going to a fairly even momentum, really anyone's game, about a minute left with Georgia deep in their own territory, we again force a fumble, and that was game changing. All of a sudden, a 6-3 game swings massively in favor of Notre Dame because now they got 30 seconds to get a touchdown, and they just got to get 15 yards, and then they'd be up by two scores. And they did get that touchdown, and I really had to calm myself down at halftime because I had to keep reminding myself there's another half of football to play. But that to end the half like that was so perfect, and then to start the second half with a kickoff return, like I was in dreamland, and I just couldn't believe Notre Dame were competing like this against a team like Georgia. And even though they don't have their starting QB, Notre Dame also had a lot of defensive starters out. and they're still looking very good, and their defense just dominated the whole game. Georgia could barely do anything. There was one drive in the third quarter where they were really quick, got the ball downfield, got a touchdown. But that was the only time they looked really productive, I think, in the game. And like it was a controlled win, and Notre Dame were the better team, and that just like was so nice to see because I just didn't get to see that. I fully expected this to be a blowout, and I feel like Marcus Freeman as a head coach is still learning. It's easy to forget that he's actually only in his third year as a full-time head coach ever, and what he's been doing is pretty impressive. And even with losses to like Marshall and Northern Illinois, I don't think I ever saw us compete like this against the very best teams under Brian Kelly. We never lost to teams like Marshall or Northern Illinois under Brian Kelly, but at the same time, we also never competed as well as we did last night. And so Notre Dame held on 23 to 10 victory, first New Year's Six win since 1993. And I just because of how low my expectations were going into the game, because of how often I've seen the script play out, where Notre Dame just get crushed in prime time in the biggest games, it's a really, really great, like, joyous moment for me. And I'm really glad that I got to see it happen. And this is a win that I'm going to remember for a long time. And honestly, if we can beat Georgia, the playoffs are pretty open now. I think between Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, and Notre Dame, it's really anyone's game. It's nice to see so many Midwestern teams in and not SEC. Uh, but man, I'm just like, even if we lose to Penn State, I still think I'm going to be really happy and excited about how the season went because we actually performed in the biggest game, and it makes me really happy.